Hey, this is 6-Volt Von Doom's lab. This is Hook of the Reaper release 1.3.1 and Lead Hook Strip release 0.21. So one thing I just kind of want to address real quick is I've been out for probably the last week, maybe a little more or less. It just been, wasn't feeling great. It's been a rough week. Been, not feeling really tired and sick, and also had a lot of pain. So I do suffer from chronic facial pain. I have like a nerve stimulator that helps out with it and other things. But yeah, just happened. So it's one of those things where, I can't help out with technical support all the time because I'm going to be out because, I'm not the most healthiest person. But anyways, moving on. The one other thing, if people didn't see, I made a Lua script for Time Crisis on MAME. So I made a Lua script. Why did I put MAME hooker in there? It's for MAME. Video going over how to make a Lua script for MAME. I think that just automatically filled in because of Notebook++. It does it sometimes. So I show how you find memory location. So I find ammo, life, and credits, and then correlated the memory locations from Cheat Engine back to MAME. Then I tell people watch out for the EDN problem. And also I made a new kind of Lua script. Made it from scratch, so it taps in on the memory location. So when the memory is written to, it does the function, which is a lot better than the old script, because the old script ran on every frame. So it ran 60 times a second. Well, if that memory never gets written to and during that time, it just keeps on reading that memory. So it reads the memory constantly, every frame. It's reading that memory, then if the memory changes, it does stuff. But this one's a lot better because it just watches out, hey, when that memory location gets written to, then you go do your stuff. So instead of running 60 times a second and reading the memory location, my script only, like I said, changes when that memory location gets written to. So probably maybe once a second, probably not that much, depending on how much you fire and how much your life and ammo is changing and all that. So I just wanted to tell people that. And also in this release, I have the updated default LG game file in the MAME Lua folder, and also the new one and old Lua scripts are in there too. So, but that's this. I just wanted to cover that real quick if people didn't see that. So for lead hook strip, the reason why I did a couple releases is I found two bad bugs with it. The first one was with the sequential command. So the pointer to the sequential sequential struct wasn't allocating memory. So because it wasn't allocating memory, there was no sequence structs for it. And with no sequence structs means the command would not work, of course. So it was freezing the Pico too. So after debug, I found out the problem why it wasn't allocating the memory, and I fixed it, and that was 0.2 release. It's kind of a weird one because I know I tested sequence before I released it, so I don't know how I kind of screwed that up. But I fixed it, and now it's allocating memory correctly and updating correctly and working fine. Then I found another bad bug with display range command, which could lock up display range. And this is due to if the value repeated. So when it starts up, it defaults to 0. So if it got another 0, so if it repeated, then it locks the strip until the game ends. So it wouldn't crash the Pico 2. It just locks up that strip because I didn't do, so if the data wasn't changing, I needed to release the strip, and I kind of didn't do that. So now I put that in. Also, it could happen too if the LED numbers didn't change. Example of that, if you have a high max range of, like, let's say 1,000, and you have 100 LEDs in the strip, well, the range would have to change 10 to change it by one LED. But going from like 799 to 798 wouldn't change the LEDs, so it wouldn't really do anything, and it could lock up the strip. So I changed that so that wouldn't happen anymore. So the problem was fixed in 0.21 release. So now if nothing happens, it still releases the strip. So yeah, those are two kind of like bad bugs. So definitely, if you're using the lead hook strip, definitely you should go get version 0.21 on the GitHub, which I'll have a link in the video below. Okay, so moving on to Hook of the Reaper. So on Hook of the Reaper, there was a bug using 4 players with the Send and Light gun. So using 3 players was fine. This is to use 3 or 4 players, you need to have 2 of the send-in-lightgun.exe running. And then the second exe needed to have a different TCP server number. So then you can get multiple, that's how you can get multiple send-in-light guns working. However, one person found out when you tried to add the 4th light gun, it will error out saying, hey, you're using a 3rd TCP server, which the person wasn't using. They were only using 2. So I found the error, what was causing the problem, and fixed the problem. So to fix the problem, it happens when it's loading up the default LG and getting everything set up. But the user was still seeing problems. Hook of the Reaper was still freezing. So after doing some debug, I only could be if it couldn't connect to the TCP server, because if it couldn't connect to the TCP server, it'll just sit there and wait forever trying to connect to it. So I changed it now, so instead of waiting for forever, it now waits for 5 seconds and gives up. So if it can't connect in that 5 seconds, it gives up, and you'll get a pop-up error saying, hey, couldn't connect to the TCP server. But even after adding the 5-second try to connect, the user found there was actually a bug with the send-in software. Actually, he found that 4 send-in light guns cannot be awake at the same time. So it could be any combinations or any orders of the 3 light guns being awake and the 4th one being asleep, but the 4th one would always go to sleep. So since that one got kind of go to sleep, it would kind of screw things up because they all need to be awake to kind of connect to and work with. So now that problem with the 3rd TCP server with the 4th send and light gun, it's been fixed now, and it's in version 1.3.1. So, but I tested it connecting to the server because I can make fake send and light guns and connect to the lightgun.exe and have 2 of them with 2 TCP servers. So they're connecting fine now. But I can't fully test it because I don't have 4 send and light guns. And from what the person said, it's you can't do it anyways because there's a bug with it, because you can't have 4 send-ins awake at one time too. So. But that was kind of an interesting one and fix. Okay, the next bug is I added Ultimarc display commands to the INI side of Hook of the Reaper. So I know a lot of times people forget that Hook of the Reaper can do INI side or MAME hooker INI files. It's kind of limited. You can only do right now you can do serial port commands. You can't do read, but you can do all the other serial port commands. You can do the general USB HID commands, and now you can do these 4 Ultimarc commands. You can do ULS, which changes the state of a pin. You can do ULI, which changes the intensity of the pin. And of course, this is only for pack 64, which is the nano LED, the pack 64 LED, and the IO pack ultimate or pack ultimate, like what is it? Pack ultimate IO one. Then you can do ULF, which you can change the fade of all of the device. And that's a pack 64 only too. And then you can do ULK, which is kills the lights for the device. And I think there was like 3, maybe 4 other commands I didn't put in, which I didn't think was really needed. I think these are the ones that people only use. So now I kind of tested it out a little. I haven't done a lot of testing, but made sure it was working. So, and also you don't need to have the light controller added to Hook of the Reaper. So just kind of like MameHooker, all the stuff is included in the file. So it kind of goes to the software wrapper around the pack software. Then it just does the command. So when you say device 1, it does the first device in the the list. So if you have multiple devices, it'll be 1 would be the first device, then 2, 3, 4. So you don't start at 0, you start at 1. And the same thing for pins. Pins start at 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't start at 0. Okay. So for pack 64 is up there. Intensity is started at 0. Is 0 from the start, but the state is turned off. Wait, no, that's how it is. The intensity is turned off, but the state is turned on. So then when you turn the intensity on, the light will come on. Then for ULF, that's supposed to be ULK. So when you kill the lights for the pack 64 ones, the nano LED, the pack 64 LED, and the pack ultimate IO, it sets the intensity to 0 and the state to 1. Then for the pack, which is the pack drive, I think then UHID and BlueHID, it just sets the state to 0 because you only have the state. So if you want to use states in the pack 64, you have to set the intensity first, then change the state for it if you wanted to do that. I think that's how it's set up with MameHooker. But if it's not, you can tell me and I can change it for it. So that's why I think that's how it is, but I don't know totally for sure. But now these commands are in Hook of the Reaper version 1.3.1. I know one person wanted them in, so now I got them in. And also I just say I don't know how much longer I will support the INI side. I know in the beginning I wanted to do everything that MameHooker does, but now looking at some of the smaller stuff, it does a lot, and some of the smaller stuff I don't think maybe 1 or 2 people use in the whole world. So it seems like a lot of work for like little gain. So I don't know if I'm gonna if I probably do all the stuff, I'll probably do it on the default LG side, and might not continue the INI side because I just don't think a lot of people use it. I think the vast majority uses the default LG side of Hook of the Reaper, where the INI side was just more to have people have kind of like a backup for it of if MameHooker wasn't working, because now as MameHooker gets older, it's not working for new devices. So I kind of want to have it for backup, but I don't want to do a lot of these older things which barely anybody uses. I know some people use like weird things. I know one guy's had like a keyboard he uses the turn on the lights, and he's like, oh, you got to put that in. And I'm like, I don't know. You're like the year and a half. I've never heard anybody wanted to light up their keyboard, but it might help out. I don't know. So we'll see. But we'll see how it goes on for the future. But I'm kind of going back and forth if I want to continue support for the INI side. Okay. The next one I added a check in for the max range for light hook strip for the light controller. This is if the value is larger than max range. It will send out, if the value is larger than the max range, it will send it out, and it would crash actually light hook strip because it's out of range of the array, right? Because if you say the max range is 30, it thinks it's going to get 0 to 30. If you put 31 in or higher, it doesn't expect that and crashes. And I didn't put that in for 1.3.0 because usually that's how I do it. I usually, for the first release, I don't put like all the checks in. I put like 80 to 90% checks in, but I don't put all of them in just to make sure to get people out there using it to make sure there was any other bugs. And seems like there was only really 2 bugs. That one I caught, the other one was updating variables until I had to change it to update the variables at the end of all the commands running. Because now you can have multiple commands running for an output signal. So now it updates at the end of all the commands running. Then it updates the variables. But those are only 2 things I kind of found. But now I did more testing. I've kind of flushed things out more. Like I said, I find the stuff in the let hook and also kind of did a couple things. Put all the checks in for Hook of the Reaper too. It's kind of like normal. I did this for the Ultimarc RGB, then Ultimarc regular, then Ultimarc pack drive. That's kind of just how it goes. I kind of put it out, then I kind of flush out some of the bugs that I didn't catch and all that. But now it doesn't say, so now if you try to put like 31 in, it'll just change it to 30. So if your like range is from 0 to 100 and you put 30 in, so from 31 to 100, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to be full. So I'm sure I'll probably get like people will go, why? Why isn't it changing? And I have to be like, because you have to change the max range variable kind of thing. But yeah, so now that check is in too. So now it shouldn't crash the lead hook strip anymore if it gets out of range for the array. And also put in a check to make sure the value changed, because that's how the MAME stuff works. It only updates if the value changes. So you should never have like the same value coming again. So, but I put in a check to say, hey, if the value is the same as the last value, then don't do it. Don't send the data to let hook because it's not going to help out. You're changing it to the same value anyway, so you're just going to do nothing. So then it just doesn't send it. So, and it's kind of like I said before, I had that bug where if you send the two same values, it was getting stuck. So, and also just to make sure that doesn't happen, but it can happen. Like I said, if you have their max range really high and only have so many LEDs, that's going to happen anyways. But just to make sure to reduce that risk, I put that check in there too. Okay. So yeah, so one thing also I found out is the example game files for the light controllers. Yeah, I didn't do really a good job with them. I found like a lot of errors. I was probably in a rush, and yeah, I probably cut and paste and copied a lot of things. So some of the flash commands didn't have the wait argument, which would then error out. I think some reload sequences and death flash had the wrong player number. Then I had the wrong output signals for player 2. So I cleaned everything up for the examples too, and to make sure they're the correct thing and have the correct arguments and everything. So if they had player numbers, the player numbers right, the output signals were right. So yeah, I just cleaned those up to make them good. Then another thing I found when I was updating things in the background class, I had the wrong groups being used. This is when it's turning off the lights. So if you have a command running on top of the background, you should use the other groups, not the background groups, but the other groups of the other command. So I was using the background group instead of the other group. So it was a really small thing, and probably no one would ever see it because you would have to cancel things out during when you're running a game. Okay. Then, okay, enhancements for Hook of the Reaper. Since I put the fade in for the I&I side, I also put the fade in for the Ultimarc light controller. So you can set the default fade in the group file now. So you go default fade, then you put the number in. So example, if you want to put it to 127, you put default fade 127. So it's pretty easy just to add it to the group file. If you don't do that, it just defaults to 0. So then fade is 0 through all the commands. So if people saw I did a background command video and I was doing with the time crisis video, I was using the fade. And if you see it, you can see the ammo slowly, the green light slowly disappearing now. So it wasn't set too high. I think I had it like around 30, but you can kind of see it slowly fading out. So it does work with the background and all that. So you can see, so you saw the ammo counter fade slowly in it. Also, I added a default LG option to override the fade. So if you want the fade to be a specific number in a game, you can override it in the default LG options. So you do override, you put override fade, then the number, like here's an example of it, in the options for the default LG. So when the game ends, then the fade will go back to the default value. And I've updated the document for that. So if you come down here to default LG documentation, you can see options. Then if you come here down to the bottom, you can see down here I put the information how to override the fade. And also the last time I did the skip LD from the last release. So that's in there now too. So the options, like this is kind of a normal default LG file. Then right after recoil and reload, you can put in options. Then you put the options in, then when you're done, you go end options. So that's how you set it in there. Then for the Ultimarc, you can see here I added documentation to how to do the default fade, how to put that into the group file. Okay, so I added 2 new RGB display functions for Ultimarc devices. So I call it slash RGB and double slash RGB. It kind of looks like a monster kind of slashing. So it kind of goes, so it kind of looks like just kind of slashing going from like left to right. Then if you do double slash, it goes from left to right, then right to left kind of thing. So it's kind of like another option that's kind of good for damage. So I'll make another video, a video of it so people can see it in action. And also I put it into the background commands too. So you can run it on top of backgrounds if you want to. So like I said, it looks kind of cool and you can do some cool things with how it goes out with the pin ordering. So I'll show that in the video. and especially with the double flash, because it kind of goes, like I said, left to right, then it comes back. It reverses. So it kind of adds 2 new commands for it. So I can show that on, if I go to Ultimarc, now they have a slash command, so it kind of talks about it and how you put it in. So it's a pretty easy thing to do. So it has slash just has 2 arguments, then double slash have 3 arguments. So color and delay, then color delay and time off. So pretty easy thing to do. Okay, another big update, which probably a lot of people will like, is I updated the test light controller. So an easy good thing is for color, side color, and color maps, they're now combo boxes. So the old way you had to type in the color or the color map, but now it reads the colors and color maps and puts them into combo boxes. So it's a lot easier to select colors. So now if you come here and you go edit test light controller, you can see down here you have color, and then you can pick all the colors you have from the group file. So if you want to change it to red, it's a lot easier. You don't have to write it in anymore. And for the color map too. So if you do something that uses a color map, now you can go and select the color map that you want. So it just makes it a little easier to select what you want. So you don't have to write it in anymore. Okay, then the next thing too, as you can see, I added in lead hook strip into it. So over here you can see type over here. Then you can just come down here and go lead hook strip. And as you can see, it changes some of the stuff. So instead of groups, now it goes to strips, and also the controller number gets changed. So if you have 1 here, it gets 1 here, then it changes the commands too. Then instead of background, now it's DR, which is display range. Then other things open up, right? So if it's not used, then it gets locked down, right? So for Flash, you wouldn't use the second color or color maps, or all these get kind of taken out. So you can see only time on, time off, and Flash is there. Then you have all the other stuff. So if I do display range, then a lot of this opens up. So now you can do a color map if you wanted to, and do enable sequential reload if you want to, and select all these things. So this should help out people testing out lead hook strip, because now you can just type in stuff and run it right away. The only bad thing is you can't run commands on top of display range. So in Ultimarc, when you do the background, you can run commands on top of that background. But for lead hook strip, because of how it's set up, I can't run things on top of it. So you just can't do that. You can run the display range. Then once you run it, then these will light up here. Then you can update and also this will unlock. Then you can put any number here into it. Then you can update it. Then you can close it down too. And the same thing with background. Now you have close. So when you run the background, these will be on. When the background is running, these will be on. Then when you close it, they will go off. So just to let people know, because last time you couldn't really turn off the background pretty easy. You had to change the controller or turn it off, which is not good. But so now that kind of adds a lot more functionality to the test light controller window. So now you can test out both light controllers in it. Okay. And also I've updated testing of the arguments of both Ultimarc and lead hook strip commands in the hook light engine. Because before that, it will only tell you, hey, there's something wrong with the arguments. but now it'll tell you exactly what argument is wrong. Well, the first argument that has problems. If you have multiple problems, the argument, it will only tell you the first one. So this will happen with both, like I said, Ultimarc and lead hook strip. So it's a lot better, more info instead of saying, hey, arguments are bad. Also, probably easy one which most people won't care about. I cleaned up the light controller parent class along with the child classes of Ultimarc LC, which is the Ultimarc light controller, and this is addressable LED strip light controller class. So yeah, I probably won't spend too much time on that. Also, I've updated, changed, and updated the game default file info docs. So instead of having a game default file for both Ultimarc and lead hook strip, I just have one main document now for just telling you how to write the group file. Then I split out Ultimarc and lead hook and just do command files for them. So that should be, I think, a lot kind of very easier to understand. So if I come here, now when you come down to game default file, you would just have game default file info for both of them. And this will tell you how to create the game default file. And also I put the rules in, which I did from version 1.3.1c. These are kind of the 6 rules I've had, and they're kind of simple. Just like it has to start with an output signal, then from an output signal it can go to another output signal or a light controller in groups. It can't go to a command. Then, then the game, then the file must end with the output signal or a command. Then the same light controller in groups cannot be used twice in the same output signal. So it's kind of like pretty easy rules to follow. So as long as you follow that, it's easy to do. Then I kind of go through down kind of the categories and how you can create them and some things to watch out for. Like, this one, now you can go, instead of having all the groups in one line, you can split them out if you want to, but I highly discourage that because it's not efficient to do that. It's the best to put all the group numbers all on one line instead of splitting them out. And now, since now I have 2 different light controllers, you can do it. You need to have different commands. So this is how you can say, hey, I want to do Ultimarc, flash RGB, then flash adjustable light strip, right? How you do that, you put the output signal, then you put the controller on groups, then the command. Then you put the different light controller on groups, then the command. And also, if you want to separate them, you can. So this acts just like this. So as you can see, this is just separated. So instead of having the output signal once, you can have it twice and do that if you wanted to. Either way, it works pretty much the same way. Then this is kind of the thing where air out. As you see here, I'm using output signal P1 damage. Then I'm using light controller 0 with group 0. Then I reuse it again. So that can be pretty bad. So that will air out. So that's what I was talking about in Rule 6. But the good thing with it is you can use, you can have, so on here you have P1 damage. So this is Ultimarc controller. So this is Ultimarc controller on 0 with group 0. So group 0 will do a flash, right? Then group 1 will do a sequence. So now also you can have multiple commands on the same light controller. as long as the groups are different. So you can have one do flash and one do sequence. Long as the pins are, if they don't have, these groups don't have the same pins. If they do have the same pins, then the second command will not run because some of those pins are used, or all of them are being used. And then the light controller won't run the second command because it's go, hey, it's being used right now, so just forget it, it won't run it. But if these groups have totally different pins, these will work fine. So that's why I kind of want to make sure people know now you can have multiple commands for the same light controller too. So that's the group file. So now if you go to Ultimarc commands, the first thing I put in, I'll have cut and paste safe commands now. So I have general, RGB, and regular. So these are the commands that you can cut and paste with no problems. You won't have any problems if you cut and paste these commands. Then below here, I have cut and paste not safe commands now. So these are the commands you cannot just cut and paste. And also I put the reason why. So if you do like reload flash, you have the player number, which is the last argument. So if you're cutting and pasting this, you have to make sure the player number is the correct one. That's the last argument. And that's kind of the same for anything with reload or death in front of it is going to be player number. Then the background will have, you have high count, player number, other groups and stuff. Then the same thing for regular. And then when you come down here, then it just goes through all the commands. So as I showed, then you have the arguments, and you have some examples, and you have regular, and same thing. Then on lead hook, now I have the same thing. You have the cut and paste safe commands and cut and paste not safe commands. And again, it tells you why you can't have that and where the argument is. So again, with reload and death, you have the player number. Then display range, you have the max range, which is the first argument too. Then another thing for lead hook commands I have for flash, random flash, and sequential, you can only have 10 commands total. So there's a limit to it. And that, if you look at this, you're like, oh, this is one command, but it's not because it's per strip. So if you run this on all 4 strips, this will count as 4 commands of the 10. So each strip, running command on each strip, it counts as a command for that 10. So now you use 4 of the 10. So I just say, I don't think anybody's going to reach the limit, but if somebody does and needs more, I can change it. The only reason I have 1 to 10 because I use 0 through 9. So I have to add another digit to it. So that's why I kind of left it as 10, just to try to reduce the data going down the serial port. But after that, you just have the same thing. You have commands, you have flash commands, regular, sequence, display range, and the arguments again. So same kind of stuff there. But now, and that's also in the text document. I'm just showing the website because it's a little easier because it has a heading so you can see the stuff a little easier when I'm getting at. But that's also updated in the text file too. And another cool thing, which probably most people get, I updated the cmakelist.txt file for Qt. So now I can compile Qt6, which is Windows 10 and 11, and Qt5, which is the older Windows, in the same kind of file. So it will speed up things greatly, and I can have Qt out, Qt5 out, versions out at the same time. So they don't have to do some extra stuff to do Qt5, which wasn't that hard, but now I kind of have it set up. I can use Qt6 or Qt5 in the same thing. That's from the CMake file. But that's it. So that's all. So good things for a lot of useful things, a lot of useful updates, especially for the test light controller, and getting new display commands too, and the fade. But that's it. Thanks. Bye.